What's up, everybody? It's Tyler here, and I'm joined by a really great guest. He has produced some pretty dang good songs over the past couple of years. He's worked with some big names in country music, and now he's gone the artist route. I got Pennington on here with me. What's going on, man?
Dude, that was quite an introduction, man. I hope I can live up to a little bit of that. So we'll see.
Well, you can. I'll talk about who you worked with in a minute, but first off, most important part of this interview is we're talking about your debut single. It's called "Stay in School." Uh, well, I'm in school right now, not in the classroom. I'm home.
Don't
uh,
don't leave, man. I know you think you want to.
don't worry, I won't. I won't. I get that degree. But first off, how does it feel going from the producer to the artist and having that first song out there?
Man, like honestly, it was it was just a relief, I think, to just like get it all. Because I mean, there's a lot of like planning and the anticipation of, are people gonna like this? Am I gonna get a response from it? There's all the content building and stuff like that around it too, man. So I mean, it like really does kind of suck a huge part like of you, um, out, man. But it's just it felt really good to get it out, and it gave me, I think it just like gave me some intention of like what I was doing with my day for a while. Like I knew that this was kind of like, okay, well, this is like stay in school season. And, everything seemed to kind of like gear toward that in a lot of ways, which I think it should, you know what I mean? I think it was one of those things that um, I've been sitting on the song for a little while and had been kind of picking through it and just fine tuning it and recutting stuff that I wanted to do. And so, I mean, I felt good about it. Like when it was all said and done, and I got in that final mix back, and it was just, I mean, yeah, it was relief. It was exciting. It was a little scary in some ways, I think, because um, I mean, you're putting something out there for the first time, and you're putting yourself out there, really is what it is. I mean, you were talking about the production stuff a minute ago, and I love doing all of that, but it is something that I don't like. Even though I was a part of it, I'm not the face of this thing. Whether it's a Brandon Davis cut or like a Andrew Janakis cut or something, like they get to worry about all of that side of it, and their teams get to worry about all that. I just like get to enjoy making the song, and so it was definitely a little bit different, I think, kind of getting in to that side of things and just trying to like figure it out and continuing to try to get better at um, the next one. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, we're in this stay in school season, but I'm also just like learning a lot about what works, what doesn't work, how to do things. Just like you should, I think, anytime you do something for the first time. But man, it's out there though, and that's the important thing. Is it was just it's a milestone for me in my life that I'll always have, and I'm excited about that side of it and being able to have this sort of time stamp on something and me releasing it and being able to look back at it in a few years and kind of see where I was and where I'm going and where I'm at.
First off, I'd like to say apologies for my yawning. It is Tuesday and it's already been a long week.
Dude, if you're in college, I think you've earned the right to yawn, man. I mean, it's definitely, man, it's a tiresome sort of time.
Stupid midterms.
Yeah,
But
they'll
anyway,
get you.
speaking of staying in school, uh, what is some of the inspiration you drew from for that song? I know we talked about before we started recording how a lot of artists, including yourself, like to draw from personal experience when you're writing songs and stuff like that, and when you go into the studio and do the mixes and everything. So, what's the inspiration behind staying in school?
Man, so I mean, just I'll tell you just a little story about it real quick though. I was writing with Andrew Janakis like that whole week. up in Nashville, and we've been set up with, a ton of different rights. And he had written with Walker Hayes once before we had written with him. And I just thought it was so cool that he had written with Walker. And, because I've been a big Walker fan for a while. I just connect a lot with his story. And, we both have a lot of kids and both love the music thing. And if both had our certain struggles that are related to really kind of chasing a dream and the passion of things. And so we were actually on our way to go write with Walker. And just like every time I write with Andrew or get around him, we start like freestyle rapping. And we're going down the road, and there's this school bus that stops like right in front of us. And I think I was rapping then, and I said something about, man, I'm just trying to play it cool, and all these kids need to learn they got to stay in school or something like that, And so as soon as I said that, I looked at Andrew and I was like, dude, write that down. Like, that would be a perfect thing for us to like bring into Walker. And at the time, this is pre-fancy like for Walker. And this was post Gone Too Soon for Andrew. So, we're in the room thinking we're going to write for Andrew that day. And Walker was thinking kind of the same thing. But then we got on this idea, and I brought that up about staying in school and about how to flip that. And, the whole flip, or to me, the message that you usually hear when someone says to stay in school, it's like the, old timey sort of PSA, like, don't do drugs, kids, like stay in school, don't drop out. Like, because that was a big deal, I think, even in the era that my parents grew up in, a lot of their friends were dropping out of school and going and getting jobs and didn't think they needed it and all of that kind of thing. And so, but I just, I was telling him, I was like, man, the idea to this, I think, is like how awesome, and exciting things were like when you were in school. And not because you were in school learning all this stuff. It was just a time in your life that, you look back and there's a lot of firsts, and there's a lot of things that, now that we're all a little bit older and we look back on like things that we would do differently or wish we would have done more of and all of that. So it was just like a really cool sort of nostalgic thing. But we sort of immediately knew when we started writing this that it wasn't really for Andrew at that point. Like it had fit a lot more like Walker's style of like what he was doing, more so with like his 8-track stuff that he had thrown out. And I mean, even the initial track like had a lot more like that kind of feel to it. And I was running track that day. And so, I ended up cutting a vocal on Walker, brought it back home. We continued to talk about it after. And then Walker comes up with a demo of his own of, different key and still a very similar, like very nostalgic type feel. But, every time I've played that song out at a writer's round, it's always been one that caught people's attention, for one. For two, it always just seemed a lot more fun than it just solely being like a looking back nostalgic type thing. It felt like very current, and it felt fun, and it had some energy and stuff to it. So I started drawing on that. And I was really honestly pretty inspired by, the old Kanye West College Dropout album. He has a song on there called We Don't Care. And so this is where I got the idea of the kids singing in the background of the chorus. Was he had on that song, he had kids singing like the second and third chorus of that song. And so I said, all right, well, I've got some kids at the house, and I'm sure that they'd like to earn a little bit of money. So I paid them $50 each to come out here and actually spend some time with me and not goof off, like, to sing it and cut their vocal. But to me, that's what really like gave it like kind of took it over the edge and made it that much more like fun and just youthful. And it just, something about hearing a kid's voice singing, it just automatically sort of adds this different energy to the song. And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, Walker was a huge, inspiration for that. Andrew being in the room and getting us in there and helping write it was a huge inspiration. Kanye West, my kids playing it at rounds. It just like sort of took a life of its own. And it was something that I'd held on to for a little while, waiting to see if Walker was going to cut it.
Yeah.
But, but it was something that not many songs that I write, I just feel like super connected to, or I feel like, man, like that's one that I really enjoy singing myself, or that's one that I think that I would sound great doing. And so, I ended up having that conversation with Andrew and with Walker about, what was kind of going on with the song. And, I ended up cutting it. And, it's funny, like I talked to Walker, a couple of weeks ago, like when it released, and he said, the first thing he thought when he heard it is he goes, man, I started thinking maybe I should have cut it. And to me, like that was his way of really giving me like a compliment, and it just felt good to kind of hear that from him. As like one of the writers and creators, man, it's one thing to go write a song, but to like be able to put your name on something, or want to, or even think about it, especially in like his or Andrew's position, like, that means something to me for sure.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of when you were a kid, what were some of the biggest, I guess you could say, inspirations for you wanting to get into music? Like, who were the artists that were the driving force for you that made you want to, get into guitar or get into rap or hip hop, whatever it was?
Man, it's honestly, it was something for me that I always just like, you know, I was always a big talker, and you might be able to tell that just by the answer of that last question. But, I mean, I just I love to create things, and I think that what it is, and I've said this before, is seeing people that make me understand that there's like a new possible of something that is even possible. I mean, I can remember being in third grade and, uh, knowing every word to Sold by John Michael Montgomery. And same thing, like, Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise. Coolio just passed away, but like that was something that it's funny. I've been talking about him a lot lately because that was one of the first songs that I ever learned every single word to. And same thing with Grundy County Auction, like Sold, it was like that. And then I Like It, I Love It, Tim McGraw, and it was and maybe, if you listen to Grundy County Auction, it's like it's a singing, rapping country song anyway. It's like that dude's like he's spitting some stuff out. So I've always been attracted to that. But this is going to be a funny answer. I don't know if you remember who these guys are, but there was a band of teenage boys called Hanson when they had a song called Bop. And so when I was in fourth grade, these guys were, the heartthrobs of America. All the guys thought it was stupid because all the girls loved it so much, and they sounded and kind of looked like girls and everything, as far as like, their appearance, like they, but the thing that really drew me to them, and I became like a big fan of theirs, was these guys were only a couple years older than I was, and they're playing sold out world tours. And I didn't know that kind of thing was even possible. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
not like, it's not like I started doing music and the very next year I was playing a sold out show in London or something, like they were. But it got me in music enough, and it sparked my interest enough in music, just knowing that, okay, well, it can't be that hard if these guys that are just a couple of years older than I am are doing it. So I learned, I think, I mean, maybe before then or slightly after, I'd started taking piano lessons, and that turned into guitar lessons. And then that turned into my parents, any birthday, Christmas kind of thing. It was always some kind of music thing that I was interested in, or getting for Christmas. I mean, even if it was just a set of bongo drums or a little egg shaker or something, I was like collecting things to just make some noise, man. And but that's really like inspiration wise, like that was a huge part of it. And then, getting into getting into actually like writing and recording music, I mean, that came probably slightly after that. I had a notebook full of songs that I'd written and tried to start a band with my cousins and close friends, neighbors and stuff. And yeah, man, I mean, I got bit by that bug like pretty early. And it was something that I haven't been able to quite scratch that itch yet, man. I mean, I've just continuing to to have it in my life in some form or fashion. I mean, and it, you know, it could be songwriting or production, and now this artist thing, man. I mean, it's all like, to me, it's all part of the same conversation. It's
Mhm.
all like, it's just something that I just I don't feel like I can get enough of. Even if I do get tired of it, like I can't quit doing it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm kind of crazy in that way.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's a good problem to have, especially when it comes to music. Uh, you have come so far, I would say, from when you were a kid and just finding all these inspirations as a kid as to who you liked and who drove that interest in music. And you've been able to produce some big names like you were talking about. Uh, Dirt Road Country's very own interview alum, Brandon Davis. Uh,
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Country Friends guest. Brandon, what's up if you're watching this? Uh, Andrew Janakos. We've worked with Walker Hayes. You've worked with Josh Bricker. You've worked with Sam Coon. The list goes on and on. And now that you have dove into the world of being an artist, you've got this song out. Before we go, one of the most important questions for me for you is, what are you most excited for 2023? Because it's crazy to think that it's less than 2 months away.
Yeah, man, and that is wild. It's you know, I'd planned on releasing some more music this year, um, before, you know, well, I mean, I guess before 2022 is over, but I mean, that's something that like right now I've been finishing out a lot of things that I've started, a lot of ones that, you know, experimenting with songs that I've either written in the past or writing new songs of ones, and just really trying to narrow down like what songs that feel like me and that like tell my story best, and songs that I want to, you know, put out there for other people to hear. And um I've been writing a lot lately, and it wasn't that way for a little while. I mean, it had become, you know, I was kind of drowning in a lot of production
Mhm.
work, and you know, and that's all fun until you start getting down to, you know, when you're outside of the creative process, and you're more of like making sure everything's lined up or this thing's where it's supposed to be, and that's when it starts feeling a little bit more like, you know, some work. But it's, you know, it's all part of it, man. And you can't, you know, you have to love it even when you don't love it. And that was just kind of something that I just got to a point where I wasn't like super excited about what I was doing every day,
Yeah.
because it was more about like getting it done and getting it done right, making the artist happy that I was working with. And, you know, when I've kind of had a little bit of time outside of Brandon just finishing up his record, that, you know, that he's sitting on a lot of really great stuff right now. And same thing with Andrew. He's been recording a lot of great stuff. And I just have gotten to a point where it was just kind of slowing down for me a little bit on that side, where I felt like I could breathe. And what do? I decided like take on something else, because that's what we do. And that's when it just became a lot more about, all right, you know, I mean, I've written, you know, so many songs in the past, and there's some of those that really stick with you, even if they're 7, 8, 10 years old, 2 years old. You know, I mean, there's some of those that you can't get rid of. But then you also
Yeah.
say, well, you know, this song would be great for somebody else, or this would, you know, they don't feel like me. And so I've just been really trying to figure out like that side of it for me, and going, okay, well, I've got these songs right here that I really love, and they've got these types of messages, but what do I want to, you know, what do I want to say to people? Um, and so that's what I've really been focusing on, and a lot of these writes that I'm writing with writers that are intentionally writing stuff with me, like for me, is it's been fun in that way, because I've never been in that seat. You know what I mean? I've never been in the position of, it's always been, you know, either we're writing for pitch, or we're writing, you know, with an artist for something that hopefully they love enough to where they want to cut it. And you're constantly trying to like find somebody else's voice in that and what's true to them and what they would say, how they would say it. And it's cool to like be in the position as an artist to be able to just say kind of what I want to say, how I want to say it, but also with, you know, the craft of great songwriters helping you, you know, along that process of making sure that you know, you're starting on a killer idea that people are going to get and it's going to resonate with them. Or um yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's so important to me. I love to write by myself. I don't do it enough, but you know, I think that the co-writing aspect of you know, coming from the artist side now, it's just such a valuable tool, man. And it shows you a lot about people, and you learn different things, especially when you write different kinds of songs with people that, you know, that maybe you've known for forever and been friends with, but it comes up and comes out in a different way to where, you know, it's just it's a very interesting but very rewarding process that I found. And it's just so cool to just be like finally writing some stuff with my voice. You know what I mean?
Oh,
With me being, and that's probably the most exciting thing about it is like, all right, well, not, hey, would so and so say this like this? It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be the one recording this. Like, yeah, I would say it like that, or no, I wouldn't say it like that. You know what I mean? So it's cool, man.
I mean, I can only imagine what it feels like to go from the producer side of things to actually hearing your voice on the songs. It's got to be super, super cool.
It is, man, and you know, it takes a little while to kind of figure out what you want that to sound like for yourself and for other people, and you know, and experimenting and finding things that really like, you know, work good for you. Because I mean, there's a lot of songs that I've written that have been that have been great for somebody else's voice.
Hmm.
And you know, and I've found though when I'm practicing for like a writer's round and I'm having to scrounge like last minute, and it's like, all right, well, I don't want to play those same 5 songs that I played last time. Like, I better dig through some of these, and you start like relearning some of these songs that you've written, and especially if another artist has cut it or something, and you just like have that voice in your head, but being able to go through and say, well, I can't sound like that person, or I won't sound like that person. Like, how would I do this song? And that's really where a lot of that like interest in starting to do the artist thing like had stemmed from, was prepping for rounds and you know, knowing that it's like, all right, well, like you know, I've said this to you before, but about that honesty, man. Is somebody going to believe me when I say this? And am I faking this, trying to, you know, do this like somebody else? So it is fun to kind of play with a song that's already been written and recorded by somebody else. The same way a lot of people do covers. You're covering your own song, but another artist's voice on it. But it's you find your voice, man. You figure out how you would say that to people to where you can believe what you're saying. You're not reading the teleprompter. You know what I mean? You're not delivering the news to America with some speech that somebody else wrote. It's a, hey, you know, this is me just kind of speaking from the heart right here, man. And there's something beautiful about that.
I absolutely. These interviews are never scripted. Whatever comes
Yeah.
out of my mouth is whatever comes out of my mouth.
Yep.
No
Yep. Same.
regrets.
Same.
Uh,
Yeah. No regrets.
exactly. And if you guys don't already follow Pennington on his Instagram and the rest of his social media platforms, you go do that. Um, if you want to hear some great music, go listen to his debut single, Stay in School. There's plenty more coming where that came from. Pennington, it was great having you on here. Um, well, it's just great to talk with a producer and a songwriter and an artist. I mean, I haven't really had anybody like you on here. I guess, well, technically, Josh. Josh is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, no, man, I appreciate you having me on, and you know, I love everything that you've been doing, and I look forward to seeing what else is to come. I look forward to rewatching this video and you know, and just kind of reliving the conversation, man. But we've had some good talks, and um, I'm excited about what you've got coming up too, man. So it's a pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me.
I really appreciate you taking your time to come on here. And if you don't already follow one of the nicest guys in country music, you go do that right now. I know I've been saying already, but go do it. Pennington, great having you on here again. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, brother.